Melania Trump's legal storm, the $900 million defamation lawsuit that shook the media world. The news hit like a legal thunderclap. $900 million in damages, a lawsuit so massive it sent shockwaves through the media world. The target? The View. The mastermind behind it? Melania Trump. For years, the former First Lady had been dismissed, underestimated, and mocked by liberal media outlets. They had painted her as a silent, unwilling participant in her own marriage, a woman trapped in a gilded cage. But what the media never understood was that Melania Trump's silence was not submission, it was strategy. And now she was making her move. The lawsuit, filed on what seemed to be an ordinary Tuesday morning, hit the legal system like a missile strike. ABC executives barely had time to sip their morning coffee before their phones exploded with panicked calls. The headlines screamed from every news outlet. Melania Trump sues The View for $900 million in defamation case. A media war begins. Inside ABC's sleek Manhattan headquarters, what was once a calm corporate environment turned into a battlefield. Emails flew, legal teams were assembled, and executives scrambled to assess the damage potential. This could be the biggest defamation case in television history, a legal analyst murmured on CNN, visibly shaken. We're not just talking about a lawsuit, we're talking about an existential threat to one of daytime television's biggest institutions. But how did it come to this? It all started with a reckless comment made by The View host Sunny Hostin during what should have been just another politically charged segment of the show. With her signature smugness, she leaned forward and declared, "Melania Trump hates her husband. Let's not pretend. It's obvious she's only there for the money." The words were casual, cutting, and utterly baseless. The studio audience erupted in applause, her co-hosts nodded along, and the segment moved on as if nothing had happened. But across the country, in the gilded halls of Mar-a-Lago, Melania Trump was watching, and while the hosts at The View had already moved on, she hadn't. She crossed a line that day, whispered a close confidant of the former First Lady. Melania doesn't get angry, she gets even. And so, in the shadows, a plan was set in motion. Melania's legal team, a group of elite litigators known for their ruthless precision, began compiling what they called the Accountability Archive. It wasn't just about one insult. No, Melania's lawyers dug deep, uncovering years of attacks from The View, proving a pattern of malice, a systematic effort to humiliate and degrade conservative women under the guise of opinion. This lawsuit isn't just about one comment, a legal insider revealed. This is about holding the media accountable for years of slander disguised as entertainment. Meanwhile, at ABC, panic set in. The network's legal team went into damage control mode, desperately combing through transcripts, digging for a defense. "She can't be serious," one executive reportedly muttered after reading the lawsuit. "Oh, she's dead serious," came the grim response from another. The stakes were catastrophic. The View wasn't just a talk show, it was a multi-million-dollar brand, backed by lucrative sponsorships and primetime advertising deals. If Melania won, it wouldn't just be a legal defeat, it would be a financial apocalypse. "This is an extinction-level event for The View," a media strategist warned. "If they lose this, it's over." But while ABC executives sweated bullets, Melania Trump remained silent. No statements, no fiery tweets, just the cold, calculated silence of a woman who knew she had already won the first battle. And so as the media scrambled, as legal teams prepared for war, one thing became clear. The days of mocking Melania Trump without consequence were over. The shock waves from Melania Trump's $900 million lawsuit hadn't just rattled ABC. It had detonated inside the network like a bomb. Inside The View's glossy New York studio, the atmosphere had turned icy. Once a place where the hosts laughed, gossiped, and casually lobbed insults at conservatives, it was now a war zone. And the target was Sunny Hostin. "How could you be so reckless?" a senior producer snapped during an emergency meeting, his voice sharp with barely concealed panic. Sunny, normally so composed, shifted uncomfortably in her chair. "It was just an opinion," she muttered, but her words lacked their usual confidence. An opinion? That might have been believable if she had said, "I think Melania is unhappy," but no. Sunny had declared as fact that Melania Trump hated her husband and was just waiting to cash out of the marriage. And now that single moment of smug certainty had triggered a legal catastrophe. ABC's legal team was in full-blown crisis mode. Inside a sleek conference room lined with glass walls and corporate branding, a group of high-priced attorneys pored over transcripts, video clips, and legal precedents. "We're not just fighting Melania Trump," one of them said, shaking his head. "We're fighting her army of lawyers, her network of supporters, and half of America that's sick of media bias." The financial risks were staggering. The potential payout? Nearly $1 billion. The potential fallout? Loss of sponsors, credibility, and the entire show. "This is bigger than The View," whispered an executive, glancing around as if the walls themselves were listening. "If this goes to trial, it sets a precedent. It means every conservative who's ever been smeared can start suing." Meanwhile, outside the boardrooms, The View's staff was in full panic mode. Producers frantically combed through old footage, hoping to find any defense that could save them. Backstage, Sunny Hostin was unraveling. "She's lost it," one crew member whispered after catching her pacing the hallways, muttering under her breath. Her usual cool, confident demeanor gone. Instead, she was snapping at assistants, demanding to see contracts that might protect her from personal financial liability. "She can't actually sue me, right?" Sunny reportedly asked one of ABC's lawyers, her voice tight with forced calm. The lawyer's silence was deafening. Then came the corporate bloodbath. ABC executives called an emergency sponsor meeting, desperate to stop the financial bleeding before it started. "This is just a legal stunt," one ABC exec tried to reassure a nervous advertiser. "It'll pass." But the advertisers weren't buying it. One by one, they hedged their bets, delaying contract renewals or outright threatening to pull funding. "We can't be associated with a brand that's in the middle of $1 billion lawsuit," said one major advertiser, his voice clipped. At that moment, The View's hosts, once the queens of daytime television, realized something chilling. They weren't untouchable anymore. For years, they had mocked, attacked, and ridiculed conservatives with zero consequences. They had built entire careers on sneering at people like Melania Trump, assuming that she would never fight back. But they had miscalculated. Melania wasn't just fighting back. She was aiming to destroy them. And as ABC's boardroom erupted into another shouting match, as Sunny Hostin sat frozen in disbelief as legal teams scrambled for any way to stop this runaway train, one terrifying thought hung heavy in the air. What if they had already lost? Melania's lawsuit tightens the noose, The View's empire on the brink of collapse. The fallout from Melania Trump's $900 million lawsuit had reached critical mass. ABC wasn't just panicking anymore, they were drowning. Inside the network's high-rise headquarters, chaos reigned. Executives barked orders into their phones, scrambling to calm advertisers, while lawyers pored over case law in hushed, frantic meetings. And in the middle of it all, Sunny Hostin was unraveling. Sunny's downfall begins. Inside The View's once lively dressing room, tension crackled like a live wire. "We need to get ahead of this," Sunny snapped, her voice rising as she paced. "We can't just sit here and let her destroy us." Her co-hosts weren't convinced. "Maybe you should just apologize," Joy Behar muttered, arms crossed, avoiding Sunny's piercing gaze. "Apologize?" Sunny whipped around, her expression incredulous. "You want me to apologize to Melania Trump?" But the fear in Joy's voice wasn't about Melania, it was about the lawsuit. Behind the scenes, ABC's legal team had delivered a brutal truth. If this went to trial, discovery would open the floodgates. Emails, internal communications, private messages, everything. Melania's legal team wasn't just going after Sonny Hostin's careless words. They were building a case that The View had a pattern of defaming conservative women. And if that evidence saw the light of day, the network would burn. ABC's desperate counterattack? Inside an executive boardroom with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan, ABC's crisis response team was scrambling. "We need to turn the public against her," one exec muttered, running a hand down his face. "Make her look like the aggressor." A hastily assembled PR strategy was drawn up, leaked to friendly media that Melania's lawsuit was frivolous, pushed the narrative that this was just another Trump playing the victim, frame it as an attack on free speech, paint Melania as thin-skinned and desperate for attention. But there was a problem. None of it was working. The public wasn't buying the spin. Even liberal-leaning voices were questioning The View's attacks on Melania. "I don't even like the Trumps," one progressive journalist admitted on social media, "but even I have to say Sonny crossed a line." Melania's next move: silence as a weapon. Meanwhile, in Palm Beach, Melania Trump was the picture of calm. Not a single statement, not a single interview. Her silence was deafening. It was a strategy as old as warfare itself. Let your opponent panic, flail, expose their own weaknesses. And that's exactly what Sonny was doing. As The View's producers fought to control the narrative, internal divisions began to crack wide open. "But why? Didn't any of you stop me?" Sonny snapped at the staff during a closed-door meeting, her voice laced with desperation. The producers exchanged nervous glances. We thought you knew what you were doing," one of them muttered. That was the moment Sonny knew she was alone. The sponsors abandoned ship. While The View imploded behind the scenes, ABC's finance department was dealing with a disaster of its own. The network's most lucrative advertisers, the ones who kept the lights on, were pulling out. First, it was just a handful of nervous sponsors saying they needed to reevaluate their commitments. Then the floodgates opened. Major brands dropped out, unwilling to be associated with a billion-dollar lawsuit that could end in disaster. By the end of the week, The View had lost millions in advertising revenue. "This show is bleeding out," an executive muttered, staring at the growing list of canceled ad contracts. ABC faces the unthinkable. In one last, desperate attempt to save the network, ABC's top brass made a bold decision. They would offer Melania a settlement, not because they wanted to, because they had no choice. "This lawsuit could cripple us," a lawyer admitted. "We need to end this before it goes to trial." But Melania's team hadn't responded. And that was what terrified them the most. Because if Melania refused to settle, ABC knew exactly what was coming next. Melania's silence is over, the legal strike that shook ABC to its core. The pressure had reached a breaking point. ABC executives had spent weeks scrambling, trying to plug the leaks, trying to salvage advertisers, trying to make the $900 million legal disaster disappear. Nothing worked. Now the one thing they feared most was happening. Melania Trump was ready to strike. A settlement gamble that backfired. Inside a glass-walled conference room at ABC's headquarters, executives huddled together, their faces tight with stress. "This is our last shot," the head of legal muttered. "We make her an offer, she takes it. This ends." The offer was staggering. Tens of millions of dollars, a public retraction from The View, even a private apology from Sonny Hostin herself. "Just take the deal," an exhausted producer murmured, rubbing his temples. ABC's lawyers reached out to Melania's legal team, expecting negotiations. But the response? A single sentence. "Mrs. Trump will see you in court." ABC's worst-case scenario becomes reality. For a moment, silence filled the boardroom. Then, "She rejected it?" one executive exploded, his voice sharp with panic. They had banked on Melania taking the money, on her wanting this to go away. But they miscalculated. She wasn't in it for the payout. She was out for blood. The bombshell that shattered The View. The next morning, a court filing hit the press, and it was devastating. Melanie's legal team had compiled a massive evidence trove, one that didn't just target Sunny Hostin. It exposed the entire show's history of slandering conservative women. Internal emails from The View's producers mocking conservative guests behind the scenes. Clips of hosts pushing provable lies about Melania, other first ladies, and right-leaning public figures. Confidential network documents discussing how to frame narratives against Trump's inner circle. ABC hadn't just defamed Melania. They had engaged in a systematic smear campaign, and now they were caught. The View implodes from within. As the scandal exploded, The View's once loyal fans began turning against them. "Wait, so they lied about Melania?" One shocked Twitter user posted. "What else have they been lying about?" Sponsors panicked. The last few major advertisers who had stayed on jumped ship overnight. Inside The View studio, the atmosphere turned toxic. "We're screwed," one producer muttered under his breath as he watched the show's ratings collapse in real time. And Sunny? She knew the end was coming, the final blow, ABC forced to cut ties. By the end of the week, executives had no choice. The network had one final desperate meeting. "We need a sacrifice," a senior VP said grimly. "We cut Sunny loose, or we all go down with her." The announcement that rocked the media. That Friday morning, a single tweet from ABC's official account went live. "Sunny Hostin will no longer be a part of The View. We thank her for her contributions and wish her well." Melania had won. Sunny had been thrown to the wolves. And now, the lawsuit was still moving forward. ABC had lost its golden host, but they were about to lose a whole lot more. ABC's nightmare deepens. The lawsuit moves forward. ABC thought firing Sunny Hostin would be enough. They believed sacrificing their star host would calm the storm, that distancing themselves from The View's reckless commentary would force Melania Trump to back down. They were wrong. Because Melania wasn't after just one scalp, she was after the entire machine. Sunny Hostin goes rogue. In the aftermath of her public termination, Sunny wasn't going quietly. Inside her Manhattan penthouse, she paced the floor, phone glued to her ear. "You let me take the fall?" she hissed to her former producer. "You used me as a shield?" The producer stammered. "We didn't have a choice, Sunny." But Sunny wasn't listening. She was furious, she was humiliated. And worst of all, she was desperate. The betrayal that no one saw coming. Days later, a secret leak hit the press, and it changed everything. The New York Post dropped an exclusive bombshell. Sunny Hostin was cooperating with Melanie's legal team. ABC's legal disaster just got worse. Inside ABC's executive offices, pandemonium erupted. "She's flipping on us?" an executive roared, throwing a folder across the table. "She has everything," another lawyer whispered. "Emails, internal memos, private network conversations about how we shape the narrative." Sunny knew the inner workings of The View. She had seen the raw, unfiltered conversations between producers, executives, and hosts. And now, she was willing to hand it all over. The evidence that could sink ABC. What Sunny provided was devastating. Private messages proving the network deliberately encouraged misleading narratives about conservative women. Off-air recordings of top ABC executives mocking and plotting how to attack Melania without crossing legal lines. A secret internal report where ABC's legal team warned against making statements that could be seen as defamation, yet they aired them anyway. "This isn't just negligence," a media lawyer on Melania's legal team said, reviewing the documents. "This is malicious intent. The court battle is set, and ABC is losing." ABC tried one last Hail Mary. They offered Melania a record-breaking settlement. $250 million. The answer? A cold, simple rejection. See you in court. ABC was out of moves. Melania wasn't after a payday. She was out to set a precedent. And now, the trial that could change media forever was officially underway. The trial begins. ABC faces Melania's wrath. The courtroom was packed. Every seat taken, every camera trained on the biggest defamation lawsuit in modern media history. This wasn't just Melania Trump versus The View. It was a reckoning for the entire mainstream media. And ABC, they knew they were in trouble. Sonny takes the stand, and ABC crumbles. Inside, the tension was suffocating. Abrogate and ABC's legal team sat stone-faced, their once unshakable confidence cracked. Then came the moment they feared most. Sonny Hostin was called to the stand. The former ABC Golden Girl, now their biggest liability. She walked up slowly, eyes scanning the courtroom, then settled into her seat. The lead attorney for Melania's team approached, his voice calm, precise, cutting. Ms. Hostin, did ABC executives ever instruct you to portray Melania Trump in a negative light? A heavy silence filled the courtroom. Sonny's lips pressed together. She glanced toward the ABC executives, the same people who had thrown her to the wolves. She inhaled. "Yeah." A ripple of gasps spread across the room. The damning confession. Sonny didn't stop there. She detailed how ABC's producers pushed narratives that weren't based on facts, how they encouraged personal attacks against conservative women, how Melania Trump was a target from day one. And then, the final blow. The attorney handed her a stack of emails. "Ms. Hostin, are these internal ABC communications proving that network executives greenlit a segment calling Mrs. Trump's marriage a fraud?" Sonny nodded. "Yes." A shockwave pulsed through the courtroom. ABC's attorneys looked pale, because this wasn't just opinion anymore. This was malicious, coordinated defamation. ABC's defense collapses. ABC's lawyers tried to fight back. They argued free speech, claiming The View was just engaging in political commentary. But then, Melania's legal team dropped the bombshell. A never-before-seen recording from inside ABC's production room. In the leaked audio, a senior producer was heard laughing. "We can say whatever we want about Melania. She won't respond. She's just a mannequin in designer heels." The jury sat stunned. Melania? She didn't react. Just watched as her case unfolded like a perfectly executed chess move. And now, ABC knew they had lost. The verdict looms. The courtroom erupted as the judge announced the case would move to jury deliberation. ABC was out of excuses. Melania's case was bulletproof. And when the verdict dropped, it wouldn't just be ABC paying the price. It would be a warning shot to every media empire in America. The verdict. ABC's nightmare becomes reality. The jury had deliberated for hours, but to those watching, it felt like an eternity. ABC's empire was on the brink of collapse. For days, their attorneys had tried every trick in the book, pleading free speech, shifting blame, even throwing Sonny Hostin under the bus. Nothing worked, because the truth was undeniable. Now all eyes were on the jury foreman as he stood, holding the fate of a media giant in his hands. The room fell silent. Then the words that would change everything. In favor of the plaintiff, Mrs. Melania Trump. A thunderous gasp swept through the courtroom. Melania remained unmoved, her expression as calm as ever. She had already known this would happen. ABC faces the consequences. $900 million. That was the damning figure the judge announced next. ABC owed Melania Trump nearly $1 billion. Inside ABC's headquarters, chaos exploded. Phones buzzed uncontrollably. Executives scrambled for answers, and their stock plummeted in real time. Sponsors, already hesitant, began pulling out by the minute. Sunny Hostin? She sat frozen, her face drained of all color. The network that had once shielded her was now turning against her, desperate to find a scapegoat to absorb the fallout. The media eruption. The moment the verdict hit, social media erupted like a wildfire. "Justice served," one tweet read, quickly amassing hundreds of thousands of likes. "ABC just got what they deserved. The media can't keep lying without consequence." Melania Trump just did what no one else could. She held the media accountable. Even liberal pundits, who had mocked the lawsuit at first, were now backtracking, calling it a wake-up call for journalists. Cable news anchors struggled to spin the loss. CNN's lead legal analyst, visibly shaken, admitted, "This isn't just about ABC. This verdict sets a precedent. It's a warning shot for every major network." Melanie's final move. While ABC floundered, Melania made one final, calculated move. That same evening, she appeared in a pre-recorded interview, not to gloat, not to celebrate, but to set the record straight. Sitting in an elegant studio, she addressed the entire nation. "I never asked for this fight," she said, her tone measured, unwavering. "But when you allow lies to go unchecked, they do not just hurt me, they hurt every woman who has ever been ridiculed, underestimated, or misrepresented." The words hit like a hammer. The message was clear. This wasn't just about her. It was about every voice the media had tried to silence. And now, that era was over. The end of an era. With one final lawsuit, Melania Trump had done the unthinkable. She had taken on the most powerful media machine in the world. And won. The power of standing up. Lessons from Melania Trump's lawsuit. Melania Trump's $900 million lawsuit wasn't just a legal battle. It was a defining moment in media accountability. Her victory serves as a powerful lesson in resilience, strategic thinking, and the importance of standing up against misinformation. Silence is a weapon, not a weakness. For years, Melania was mocked for her reserved nature, but when she finally spoke, it shook the industry. In life, you don't always need to respond immediately to attacks. Sometimes observing, gathering facts, and choosing the right moment to act is far more effective than reacting emotionally. Know your worth and defend it. Melania didn't let media narratives define her. Instead, she took control and demanded accountability. If someone misrepresents you, your values, or your work, correct them. Speak up when necessary, and don't allow others to distort your identity. Truth will always prevail. Despite the View's attempts to spin the story, the evidence spoke louder. Lies and manipulation may thrive temporarily, but they will always crumble under scrutiny. Whether in personal disputes or professional settings, stick to facts and let the truth do the work. Set a precedent for respect. This case wasn't just about Melania. It sent a message that reckless attacks have consequences. If you allow people to disrespect you once, they will do it again. Hold people accountable and don't be afraid to demand respect. Play the long game. Melania didn't act out of impulse. She built her case strategically. Success often comes to those who think long-term rather than seeking immediate gratification. In career, relationships, and challenges, patience and planning always lead to stronger victories. Ultimately, her story proves that standing firm in your values and demanding accountability isn't just about winning, it's about shaping a better, more just world.